The letters, I read some of those text messages that they reveal in their letter to Ronny Jackson. It feels like two prongs of what you cover day in and day out for us are represented here, both in this possible coordination, which I think you first wrote about, contacts between some of these far-right House members and the extremist groups. This is the first time I've seen evidence that bolsters those ties. What was your reaction to this letter to Ronny Jackson and the text messages included?
Well, somebody's not telling the truth here, because Ronny Jackson, we asked him for comment, and he immediately said he knows nothing about any of these text messages. He doesn't know any of these Oath Keepers. So he's denying it up and down. But the Oath Keepers seem to know him, according to their own encrypted messages. One of them, it appears, seems to have his cell phone number, because Stewart Rhodes, the leader of the Oath Keepers, asked him to asked the person to pass on his information to Representative Jackson so that he would be in contact with them. They seem to know that he's moving around in the Capitol and that he needs protection and that he has certain data that they want preserved. Now, Ronny Jackson denies all of this. He says he doesn't know how he came up in their conversations. So something's off here. Someone's not telling the truth. And the committee wants to get to the bottom of it. But now Congressman Jackson is saying he's not going to meet with them. He's refusing to come in. And he called the committee illegitimate and said it was on a witch hunt against him. He also bashed the media some. So it doesn't seem like Ronny Jackson will provide answers to the committee. And so we may not know who is telling the truth.
Carol Leonnig, it is your colleague Bob Woodward who says the truth emerges. We will, I'm sure, eventually know who's telling the truth. Stewart Rhodes has been charged with seditious conspiracy. The committee alleges being in possession of evidence where Ronny Jackson was at least conspiring or cooperating or collaborating, if you will, if we want to use a less loaded word, to be protected by and with Stewart Rhodes of critical data. I mean, this does not look good for Ronny Jackson. And I will never forget till the day I die the press conference he did as Donald Trump's doctor, where he gave out some ludicrous, weight. I mean, he said he weighed like 210. I mean, someone who lies about little things surely lies about big things, Carol Leonnig.
When you and Luke were talking about that, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was remembering that news conference and thinking,
like 2 hours long.
When Luke said somebody's lying here, I'm thinking the person with a credibility problem obviously is Ronny Jackson, who was able to fabricate a whole new health profile for former President Donald Trump, including claiming that he had no heart or blood pressure problems when his record clearly showed that he did have extensive history with that, as did his father, have really deathly problems with his heart. I want to just say one thing about what is so striking about this new information as it relates to Stewart Rhodes, the federal probe, and also a cooperating witness. Remember that Stewart Rhodes, the excitement began to build about him being charged with seditious conspiracy because when that first person pled guilty in his team, Joshua James, I believe is his name. When that first person pled guilty, the issue was those folks were providing security for key Trump allies. The one key Trump ally we knew they were providing security for was Roger Stone, Donald Trump's dirty tricks man, also, by the way, President Nixon's dirty tricks man. But let's put that aside for a second. Roger Stone. So what did the cooperating Stewart Rhodes security guard, what did he know that Roger Stone said or did or was planning to do on that day? Now we have a whole new sort of mine shaft opened, and that is what was up with him and Ronny Jackson. Ronny Jackson obviously is one of the president's most former president's ardent supporters and enablers, would do anything Donald Trump said, has repeated any number of lies that Donald Trump said as absolute fact. So why did he need protection on January 6th? It seems to indicate that the Rhodes sort of phalanx knew that things were going to get dicey and dangerous, and knew that a congressman within was part of the protected class. For whatever their plan was, he needed special shielding. And I think that's going to unravel and unveil a whole new issue about the Freedom Caucus members who we know, and we've reported on multiple times, were planning something with Donald Trump and bragging about it in an Oval Office meeting that this letter now references, December 19th. Several of them emerge crowing about how they have a plan to stop this rigged election and deal with this on January 6th.
It's such an illustrative way of describing these letters, of opening a mine shaft. And I want to stay with that, Frank. I mean, the mine shaft that's been open was, and I do believe this was some of Luke's earliest reporting on 1/6, they were associations and appearances between this group of Freedom Caucus members and the extremists. And one of the looming questions has always been, will the committee or DOJ knit up the violence and the criminal conduct that took place almost in slow motion in front of all of our eyes? Everyone that sat and covered it for hours and hours saw it happen. And the people inside who, in the moment, I mean, I believe Ronny Jackson was also barricaded inside. But these texts, I want to put them up again. These are the messages in the letter. 3 p.m. Ronny Jackson, office inside Capitol. He needs Oath Keeper help. Anyone inside? So that's this coordination among the extremists with a member's office being identified as a place to head to. User 2, 3 minutes later, hopefully they can help Dr. Jackson. So they're bashing in the heads and the hands, and they're tasing Capitol police officers, but they want to, quote, help Dr. Jackson. So he's on their side, not Michael Fanone, not Officer Ganell. Jackson is. User 1 responds 5 minutes later, Dr. Ronny Jackson on the move, needs protection. So as Ronny Jackson is moving around the Capitol, the insurrectionists who are beating Capitol police officers to within minutes of their lives is looking for a member who he knows so much about. He knows he's moving, needs protection. If anyone inside, cover him. Almost like an active law enforcement or military action here. He has critical data to protect. Stewart Rhodes, then, he's been charged with seditious conspiracy, says this at 3:10, give him my cell. What do you make of that, Frank Figliuzzi?
Looking at this through the lens of a criminal investigator, which I am or have been for 25 years, this is significant. The content of these letters is significant. Why? Because we're moving beyond witnesses to other people's behavior that have been called before the committee. We're now talking about sitting members of Congress who are being asked to explain their own conduct, their own behavior, their own relationships with violent extremist groups. We're not asking you to tell us about Trump. We're asking you to tell us about you. And DOJ should be paying close attention to that, because these 3 members now are being wrapped up as the committee expands its scope, as there is now clear evidence of some kind of prior knowledge by the Oath Keepers of Ronny Jackson's location, and then this mysterious critical data that has to be protected, that has to be preserved. Is that something to do with plans for the insurrection? Is it the fact that Ronny Jackson knows the true health situation as the president's former physician? You know, is this a man who could lose his medical license for lying to all of us that day at that infamous press conference where no one believed the medical results of the exam? What is it that he possesses? So 3 sitting members of Congress being asked not to tell us what they know about Trump or others, but about themselves. And now Ronny Jackson specifically tied into seditious conspiracy defendants. Extremely significant development. I predict, because of the criminal exposure we're talking about here, because DOJ has to look at this and say, should we be opening criminal investigations of these 3? Should we be getting more evidence? I predict they're going to invoke the 5th. You're not going to hear from them. It's way too dangerous criminally in terms of their exposure.